Hey everyone, it's Adaptive Goddess, and today I'm going to be taking a deep dive into ABC and please, which are skills for emotional regulation in DBT. So ABC stands for accumulating positive experience, building mastery, and coping ahead of time. So accumulating positive experience is kind of a long-term goal, and it's when you are actually working towards your goals based on your values, and those are in Wise Mind and in your own personal values. So this is when you also pay attention to relationships. So you repair old ones, you create new ones, you work on your current ones, and you end destructive ones. This is also where you avoid avoiding. So avoiding makes any situation, especially negative ones, increase in size and in problematicity. So basically you don't want to deal with it anymore, so you keep avoiding it, which creates this vicious cycle, which makes the problem bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and harder and harder and harder to cope. This is also where you avoid the buildup because it actually increases your vulnerability to emotional mind, which you remember back in one of my first videos in mindfulness. That is when you are reacting purely on emotion and you believe your emotions are fact, and that is never really a good mind to try and cope especially in emotional regulation. Building mastery. So this is when you challenge yourself just like a little bit, and then you get better and better and better at it over time. This goes for coping skills, emotional regulation skills, hobbies, and even work skills. And so what you do is you plan for success, not failure. But you don't judge yourself if you don't get it right the first time. So this is when you do something difficult but possible, and you practice the skill when you are in kind of a calm or baseline. So if you're going to practice any coping skill or emotional regulation skill, you need to do it when you're in your calm phase, when you're at your baseline, when you are happy, when you are in kind of like a green, calm zone. You gradually increase the difficulty over time. So if you try it first and it was way too hard, try and take like a step back from it and do something easier that's working your way up towards it. For example, when I would teach swimming lessons, I first would teach being comfortable in the water. And so that literally meant that the kid holds onto the wall, they turn around, and then they jump to me. And for a split second there, they're in the water by themselves, and then I grab them. And so over time, I was able to build up not only their swim mastery, but their comfortableness in the water. Coping ahead of time. So you are going to, this is actually an exercise. So this is when you are going to describe the situation that is going to create the negative emotion. You need to be as specific as possible while you are checking the facts, and I'll have a video on that later. You name the emotion you are most likely going to feel, you're going to experience, and you try and name it as specific as possible using the emotional wheel. You're going to describe what DBT skill you are going to use. Be specific, write it out, practice it ahead of time, so building up that mastery towards it. And then you're going to imagine the situation in your mind as vividly as possible. So you really want to, when you're working on this skill, really try and imagine yourself in that moment. What is it going to feel? What are the smells going to be? What are you going to touch with your fingers? What is this? What are you going to hear? What is the atmosphere going to look like? So you're really trying to get into that situation, and then you're going to imagine yourself using that skill and even practice that skill. So you are going to rehearse the coping effectively in your mind as well as in like the real world. So you rehearse exactly what you can do being effective. You also rehearse your actions, your thoughts, behaviors, what you are going to say, and how you're going to say it. So when you're in the situation, you're not trying to immediately think on your feet. You know ahead of time roughly what you want to say, and you know that you want to try and stay calm when you do it. You troubleshoot, so you rehearse coping with problems that might arise. And I have done this so many times when I'm trying to talk to professors, when I'm talking to my boss, when I'm talking to clients. I'm always like, how do I think they're going to respond? Oh, they're going to respond great. Awesome. Well, what if they say no? Or what if they don't respond the way I want them to? How am I going to cope with that? So you try and think of all the possible outcomes and try and figure out ways to cope according to that. So that is ABC. So now we're going to move on to please. And please is kind of a funny little acronym because each of the letters in please doesn't actually stand for one thing. The P and the L actually stand for physical. So the P is the beginning of the word and the L is the end of the word. And so the PL stands for physical, as in treat physical illnesses. So this is when you take care of your body, you go to the doctor when it's needed, and you take medicine as prescribed. So following doctor's orders. So you really do want to take your health and make it a priority, because when you are not at 100%, it is super hard to actually regulate your emotions, and it's really, really hard to use coping skills, especially when your brain is working on fighting off an infection, fighting off a virus, making sure that you are healthy, and instead you make that in your consciousness, and then your brain doesn't really have to focus on it. It can focus on your skills. And I know this is so hard. I have on many occasions made my health my least priority. It has bitten me in the butt. I have not been able to emotionally regulate or use my coping skills in a time that I really, really needed it because I wasn't feeling 100%. Next is E, and that stands for eating, as in balanced eating. So this is when you don't eat too much, you don't eat too little, you really don't eat foods that are going to make you over emotional. So you really want to kind of, as you're eating, be mindful of how you're feeling when you're eating your favorite foods or when you're just eating food in general. How does it make you feel? Are you feeling like you want to cry in a pint of ice cream? Or are you feeling like you're gonna cry when you eat a chicken pot pie because it's just overwhelming you emotionally? This is also one of the things that is not going to change overnight. The changes do start small, and I'm not saying you would never, ever, ever be able to eat food that just makes you over emotional. It's just really be mindful of that, because when you are over emotional eating certain foods, it actually causes a chemical change in your brain that makes emotional regulation really, really hard. So if you're at a family potluck that you know is really draining on you emotionally because there are people there who you don't really like, there's people there who judge you for whatever reason, it is so important not to eat the food that's going to make you over emotional, but have food that you have a neutral emotional reaction to. That way you can keep your skills in the forefront of your mind and you can actually do emotional regulation, and the chemical imbalance in your brain doesn't affect anything. Next up is A, which does stand for avoiding mood-altering substances. So this is when you stay away from non-prescribed meds, substances, and drugs. This includes things like nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, or any of the drugs that are actually really illegal. Those really just cause a lot of changes in your brain that make it really difficult, if not impossible, to emotionally regulate yourself, because it's not you that is causing your emotional regulation. It is a thing beyond your control. And so in order to get out of that and control your emotions, you actually have to wait until the substance's effects wear off. Next up is S, which stands for sleep, as in balanced sleep. This is when you are going to try and get the amount of sleep that is right for you. That does not necessarily mean that 8 hours is going to be the best for you. Sometimes it can be 9 or 10, or 6 and 7. So you are going to try and keep a regular schedule so that way good sleeping habits are developed. And so some sleeping habits include sticking to a schedule, establish a bedtime routine. I think this is so important. Like, I personally have a bedtime routine that I actually can't sleep if I don't do my routine because it lets my body know it's time for bed. Don't eat or drink a lot right before bed. It is suggested that you eat at least 2 hours before bed. And I'm not saying like a cup of water before bed is going to affect you so much. It's just if you're waking up a lot to go to the bathroom, that actually disrupts your sleep schedule. Stay away from caffeine and nicotine, especially right before bed. Those both are stimulants, which means they stimulate the brain and actually cause it not to go to sleep. Exercise. If you're finding you're having trouble exercising, I recommend doing some yoga because I find really high intensity exercise to be not so good for me, but low intensity, like gentle exercise to be really, really good. Keep your room a comfortable temperature. People suggest cold, but I'm one of those who does like it cold. I know some people who like it warmer and need it warmer to sleep. Sleep primarily at night. Please don't nap after 3 p.m. And if you were finding yourself napping after 3 p.m., it's suggested that you go see a doctor because there could be something up. Keep it dark. I'm actually someone who can't have it dark, so try and keep it at a relative light for you to be able to feel comfortable in. This is your room. You should be able to feel comfortable in it. Don't have screens if possible. For me, that's not possible. I actually need to listen to people talk for me to be able to go to sleep. I don't know what it is. When it's too quiet, my brain is like, oh, I heard a noise, I have to wake up. And so when there's people talking or when there's stuff going on, it's easy for me to kind of relax more and go to sleep. So I actually go to sleep to a lot of people doing ASMR. I also go to sleep to like storytelling or sometimes some like story video games that are either really calming or just have a storyline that I can just kind of go to sleep in. Try and use your bed only for sleeping. I'm not very good at that. I like to use my bed for reading, for writing. I mean, I have a lot of like stuff up there that's very stimulating, so I get it. If you're finding yourself having a hard time going to sleep, I recommend actually taking a shower before bed and keeping it at a relatively warm temperature because it's actually the warm hitting your skin that's going to relax your muscles, relax your body, and kind of tell it to go to sleep. This is also part of establishing that bedtime routine where if you know you're taking a shower before bed, your body's more likely to relax and unwind and know that it's time for bed. Don't rely on sleeping pills if you can. I know there are some people who do need sleeping pills. Again, if you find yourself needing all that stuff, like talk to your doctor, get that prescribed, and have it monitored so that way it is actually beneficial for you. And lastly, don't catastrophize or judge yourself. You will eventually go to sleep. Your body can't stay awake forever. So if you are calming yourself down and you are laying down and you are like closing your eyes and you're practicing deep breaths, your body will get it and go to sleep. Last up is E, which stands for exercise, and that is to get exercise. So do some sort of activity, physical activity daily, whether that is intensity or whether it's something like yoga. For me, I really like swimming. It is a very comforting and very sensory-driven exercise that is comforting to me because I'm surrounded on all sides by pressure, and I really do like pressure. So it's one of the exercises that I actually can be really, really calm in. I also like yoga, and I like kind of running around and playing sports and stuff like that. So even all that kind of stuff counts as exercise. So that is ABC, please. Leave a comment down below. Which one of these were you like, oh my gosh, I can totally do this off the top of my head, like no way, I have no problems with this, and which one do you find to be the hardest? For me, I'm really, really good at coping ahead of time. I am really, really, really bad at balanced sleeping. I don't follow a lot of the sleeping habits because of just my sensory needs. So those are my really good, really bad. What are yours? So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and gently tap that like button. And remember to be kind, compassionate, and true to you.